Cass has graciously donated her time. She is a polyvagal, lymphatic, what else? Everything. You do everything, like a full spectrum of wellness,
Yeah.
regulation.
Colon hydrotherapy, lymphatic drainage, and very nervous system focused.
Okay, which is why we're here. So I asked Cass, our theme, actually I asked you before our theme, but how perfect for this theme. We had sort of a theme of not to say manifestation is a little reductive, almost. It's almost like I want to say creation, a theme of intentional creation from a regulated place so that we can, get the jobs that we want, so that we can become creative and start those entrepreneurial ventures, so that we can put one step in front of the other in furtherance of our goals and our dreams. So none of that can happen. And it's so funny because I, as a financial analyst, am the first person to say money has nothing to do, or sorry, wealth has nothing to do with money. It has to do with people. It has to do with your ability to execute on decisions and actually do things. If you are dysregulated, if you are not right, if you are in fight or flight, you are not making the decisions that you're going to need to make to build wealth for your family. So I know it seems like we're taking two totally different worlds, the vagus nerve and wealth. But really, you can't have wealth without regulation and without a healthy nervous system. So, Cass, if you will, take it away, introduce yourself. And, ladies, I'm in the chat. So let's have a conversation and be comfy in our living rooms with our tea.
Beautiful. Yeah. And on that note, I just kind of want to take that bridge that you just
Mm.
visualized for us and give a little bit of a vulnerable, tiny share in my own journey to getting back to acquiring wealth
Yeah.
after two nervous breakdowns.
I didn't
And
know this.
yeah,
Please. Wow.
yes, couple, due to unresolved trauma and severely dysregulated responses to stimuli, to people and my environment. So losing my business and losing two businesses. Yeah, because I was very much stuck in fight or flight and a shutdown response. And sure, getting diagnoses of generalized anxiety, major depressive disorder, being put on medications that were supposed to help me get back to my life, get back to making good decisions, consistency in business. And they didn't work because I wasn't doing the actual work to heal my nervous system and my responses to humans that made me feel very unsafe.
When you
People,
say when you say meds, just so that we like the traditional like anti-anxiety, depression. Okay, okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. So when we're thinking about, like, when you say, wealth is about people,
Hmm.
it very much is. If you can't interact with people while staying in your window of tolerance, how do you build business relationships? How do you gain trust,
Yeah.
right? You trust people. So the presentation today is very much talking about the polyvagal theory, the nervous system, and how that extends into health. Also give some lymphatic techniques and practical things that you can take home and do this to begin your, if you're not already begun your journey to cleansing the nervous system.
Mhm.
You can actually cleanse the nervous system.
Cleanse the nervous system. Does cleansing the nervous system happen before regulation or after regulation or part of?
It's all part of.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And it might sound mysterious, but it makes so much sense. When you think our nerves are running everywhere from our brain to our toes,
Yeah.
we know this because we can feel things, right? Our nerves are everywhere. If they are bathing in waste, because you're going to get, this is all going to make sense once we get
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
it. But when we're chronically stressed and people are unsafe, right? We've gone through traumatic relationships, traumatic situations in life that have brought us to our knees. The nervous system doesn't forget that, and it becomes quite vigilant. And in vigilance, right, of assessing subconsciously, and sometimes when you work on it enough, it becomes conscious that you are assessing people all the time and whether you're safe or not with them. The unfortunate news is you are not detoxifying and repairing your tissue while you're in that state. So if you're a highly traumatized person, You're not mobilizing and actually clearing waste from your body properly. This is going to accumulate around your nerves and it actually dysregulates the nerve. So, if you are doing your trauma work, let's say you're doing your brain retraining, your somatic work, etc., but you're not actually cleansing the body, or vice versa, you're cleansing the body, but you're not doing your somatic trauma work
Yeah.
to rewire the brain, you're not gonna get better. It's
Wow.
you need both. So that's what today's presentation is all about, to teach what is actually happening in a human nervous system. How do we recover after devastation? And how do we start to encourage our fluids to move better so that fluids, just like there's so many examples I could give, but I guess a car would be the best example. If you're not doing tune-ups and you're not cleaning the oil, the car's going to break down.
Great example. Yeah.
Yeah. And we think that our bodies are just going to do that on its own. And in theory, it will.
Mhm.
But we've evolved so much from the way that we've lived for hundreds of thousands of years, where 95% of our day we were in a parasympathetic rest and digest state,
Yeah.
and 5% in a fight or flight state if we had to protect our families or hunt food or whatever. Generally, our systems were in their one window tolerance and people were able to make sound decisions. And they knew the 150 people in their village. They were all very supportive of each other. There was a lot of safety in theory, right? I wasn't there, but this is what's taught. And now, since the Industrial Revolution, we're spending about 95% of our day in a sympathetic state and about 5% in our rest and digest state. So we flip the stats and our bodies are going, cool, that's really nice. But we have the iPhone 1 software,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
hasn't caught up yet. So savvy people really do understand this concept and go, okay, here I am being invited by this very fast-paced world of very dysregulated people wanting to do business and get into relationships and have friendships. And really, we don't know all these people the way we would have 150 years ago. There's a lot of risk in today's world. So we need to become quite savvy in understanding who we are, what our needs are, what our boundaries are, how to engage with self-care in a way that actually translates into regulation, right? What does that look like? It's different for each person, but there's some basic rules.
And I can even imagine when you were talking about how even in this, modern day, all of these things that are on our plates, the more alone that we are, the more, you know what I mean, amplified all of this stress is because especially in this community in particular, these, a lot of us have done a lot of work on ourselves and, we'd like to say we're regulated and we like, this is the work that we do all day. But at the same time, we have our entire family's well-being on our shoulders. Like it's a little thing, like if I lose my job, you know what I mean? Like it's a big deal for all of us. So take everything that you said and then amplify it by the fact that, not to make anyone stressed, but you know what I mean? This is what we're dealing with all the time. So when we talk about like the big trauma or the like big something that happens, the horrific event, it's not always the horrific event. It's just sometimes these little things that, it feels like we just don't get a break ever, that again compound the same idea. So let's, Cass, should we start with like what is the vagus nerve? How does it work? Or do you want to start about, the nervous system? How do you want to, what do you think the best way to start is?
Yeah, I mean, the whole present, let's jump into the PowerPoint.
Let's do it. Bring it up.
And so I'm a co-founder of the Toronto Lymphatic Academy. So that's what you see there. So today we're going to cover the human nervous system, the polyvagal theory, as well as allostatic load. If you haven't heard of that, it's a fascinating function or term. How to actually rewire the brain. And then I'm going to leave you with a simple but effective lymphatic practice.
Mhm. I'm going to open the chat up too. So if you don't mind, Cass, if there's any questions, I'm going to,
Yeah,
yeah.
by all means. So the human nervous system, let's start with the central nervous system. So we're all pretty aware that we have a central nervous system that is comprised of the brain. The brain processes information, right? We get about 2 million bits of information every second coming through us through auditory, visual, sensory bits of information. The subconscious mind is processing all of that, but our conscious mind can only register about 175 bits of that info. And then we have the cerebrum, and the cerebrum is what processes conscious thought. It holds memory, voluntary movement. And then we have the cerebellum, which is, helpful for coordination and balance. We have our brainstem, which is uh, controlling vital functions, our breathing, our heart rate. These are all subconscious things that we
They
don't have
also call that the lizard brain, right?
in yet, the oldest part of the nervous system. Um, and then we have our limbic system. So this is the part of the brain that most people have a lot of difficulties with. That causes a lot of inflammation, lends to, autoimmune disease, low bandwidth for stress, nervous breakdowns, things like that. It's generally the limbic system, which is part of the amygdala, and it is our fire alarm part of the brain. It's what holds memory of past threats, right? And it will quickly, very quickly remind us of potential threat, generally subconsciously. Very rarely does it happen consciously. It's a physiological response that begins the polyvagal responses.
So
Okay, so
that's the part of our brain that's constantly filtering, saying, "Am I safe, dangerous? Is this safe, dangerous, or life-threatening? Safe, dangerous, or okay." That's the
yeah,
limbic. Okay.
yeah, connected to the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is cranial nerve 10, and it originates in the base of the brain, and it innervates the face, and it goes down the neck, in through your chest, and in through your gut. It goes all the way to, for women, all the way into your uterus and your pelvic floor. So it's called the vagus nerve because it's named after a vagabond that travels. It's the longest nerve in the body. It innervates everything, really. And it's bidirectional. So it's not just information going from the brain to the body. It's also information if the body is toxic, if it's holding pathogens, environmental chemicals, xenobiotics, pro-inflammatory things that the body does not want in it. The nerves that run through your body is collecting that information and sending pro-inflammatory signals back to the brain saying, hey, we're under threat. So it starts this figure eight loop of inflammatory responses in the body. That's why we have to not only regulate the brain, we have to make sure we're living a toxin free, not toxin free, but a low toxin lifestyle as much as possible. And then we have the spinal cord, and that's the pathway for signals between the brain and body. It also controls reflexes. Then we have our enteric nervous system. So it's the second brain, right? The nerves that innervate all your pelvic organs, your digestive organs, your small and large intestine. It is the part of the body that I work with most as a practitioner. And for people who have IBS or autoimmune disease in the gut, they have Crohn's, colitis, maybe infections, parasitic infections. They eat or drink pro-inflammatory foods and alcohol and drinks like alcohol. A lot, those nerves are bathing in toxicity. They're bathing in pro-inflammatory compounds, and that is going to irritate the brain because it's bidirectional. The nerves flow completely are connected, body to brain and vice versa. So I really like to drive that point home for people to understand you can't just work on brain health. You really do have to work on the whole body to regulate the nervous system.
And would you say, so you're talking physical, like food inputs impact this, and also emotional inputs. Do they both equally impact, or do you think one is more than the other?
100%. Emotions are information. It's energy in the body that's sending information to the brain. So, 90% of our emotional responses are driving from the body, not from the brain.
Yeah.
Um, my recovery has not come from talk therapy. It's come from 3 years of somatic based therapy, and it's completely regulated my nervous system. I could do a whole other talk just on somatics. It's wild. Um, but it communicates through the central nervous system through the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve being that longest running, all seeing, all knowing kind of nerve through the body is kind of the tattletailer
Wow.
uh, brain. It tattletales everything, right? Um, and then we have our peripheral nervous system. So it's broken down into a few categories. So we have our somatic nervous system. It's voluntary. It controls skeletal muscles. So that's like you going and grabbing your bottle of water. That is activating the somatic branch of the nervous system. Okay. Think walking. I'm going to get up. Oh, I want to go for a walk. Your somatic branch of your nervous system is what's allowing you to get up and go for that walk. Then we have our autonomic branch, and that's completely involuntary. That's like the glands in your body secreting um, biochemistry. It's your organs secreting enzymes and smooth muscle contractions, like peristalsis in the gut, being able to move food through the gut properly. So that's the autonomic branch. And then that's broken down into two branches. And this is what you guys probably hear a lot about, which is your sympathetic and parasympathetic responses. So your sympathetic response, sympathetic not being the emotion. It's not about being sympathetic. It's actually means mobilization. How mobilized are you? So writing emails, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. Uh, Pushing the brake pedal on the car because you're reacting to something, that's the sympathetic nervous system. Um, we need it, right? But we need it in a proper recruitment. Like I said, we used to spend 5% of our day in a sympathetic state, and now it's 95% of the day. We need to really balance that sympathetic response that we're engaging with every day. It's too much. It's way too much. We weren't designed to recruit that branch as often as we are. And then we have our parasympathetic branch. So that's our rest and digest. We only heal and repair when we're in our parasympathetic state. One way to be able to tell if you're in your parasympathetic state is if you're breathing into your belly. If you're breathing into your chest and your throat and your nose, and the breath is not penetrating or going deeper or below the rib cage, you're in your sympathetic response. You're stressed.
Could you in then, because it's funny when just as you said that, I did that. I breathed shallow and then I breathed deeply in my stomach.
Yeah.
When I breathed deeply, I did. I felt a sense of calm. And then right away, all I had to do was breathe shallow into my chest. And it was like, you know what I mean? You feel mobilized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's a really good hack is, if you're finding you're quite stressed throughout the day,
Mhm.
some stuff going on that you can't control, but the only control you have is how you respond. So what we can do is take slower exhales than inhales. And that slower exhale is enough to activate the parasympathetic state because the way the nervous system is designed is historically we would never have the time to take a slower exhale if we were under real threat. You would be inhaling quickly and exhaling quickly because you'd be running,
Yeah.
right? So if you want to hack your nervous system and control your sympathetic or your stress response, just take a longer exhale than an inhale. You are immediately shifting your state.
So it's funny that when people like automatically would say, just breathe, take a breath, take a deep breath. You know what I mean? Like even without you knowing this stuff, we
Yeah.
know as, animals what we need to do.
Well, and that's just the thing. It's in us. You don't really have, and I could teach a whole other course on this also, but we don't really need to go and take these trainings necessarily. What we need to do is remember and trust that we remember because it's in our DNA to
Mm.
know how to regulate ourselves. We have been on this planet passing down this information through our mitochondria from our mothers for hundreds of thousands of years. We know what to do. We've just been conditioned to forget. So I'm in a process of remembering right now, and it's quite powerful. So the polyvagal theory was designed or discovered, let's say, by Dr. Stephen Porges, who has dedicated his career. He's an American doctor. He's dedicated his career to researching the nervous system, and he began his work with babies. He wanted to understand why do babies die when they're not held? What is happening in their body that makes them actually pass away when they're not being held? And this is what led him to discover the vagus nerve. and led him to understand these different states that the vagus nerve controls in the body. So the vagus nerve itself, as you know, connects the brain to body. It's predominantly a parasympathetic nerve, but it can and will also drive a sympathetic response. So if it becomes irritated or exhausted, it will shift the nervous system into a stress state. It also controls social behavior. So if you feel like a lot of adults are getting diagnosed now with autism, and it's not that they're autistic. The research is actually showing it's a new state of a very exhausted and very traumatized nervous system. So there's a lot of beautiful research that has come from Dr. Stephen Porges' research on the polyvagal theory,
Wow.
right?
If that's not an indication of a problem, then I don't know what is. Wow.
Yeah. So the core ideas, there's three main states. Okay. So you have a ventral vagal state. That's the state that we want to be in. Think of a vent opening. The
Mhm.
air can come through. There's a breeze. There's relief, right? Ventral vagal state. So you're safe. You're likely engaged socially, right? We don't engage socially often when we're in a ventral vagal state. We want to collapse. We want to go to bed. We want to be alone when we're not in a ventral vagal state, right? So, if you're ventral, you are likely making eye contact, you're laughing, you're smiling, you're telling stories, you're listening attentively, you're connected to that other human, right? So, think about business, think about making sales, think about regulating with your kids' peers or teachers or whatever environment where you might not feel that's accessible to you right now. I want you to remember what we talk about today and how you can take control of your soma, of your body, to actually get the ventral vagal state back online. You can hack this.
Mhm.
Our body's incredible. You
And
can do.
not and not just dealing with other people too. I mean, you are more creative. You are, you know what I mean? You can write, you can come up with ideas. The last thing when you're writing from a tiger is like, oh, now it's time to write poetry, right?
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Exactly. Um, and if any of you guys have heart rate variability trackers, like a Aura Ring or a Apple Watch, check your HRV score, your heart rate variability score. That is going to tell you how healthy your nervous system is and how capable you are to work out, right? Or take on a really intense job at that time in your life or whatever. It's a it's a great way to see whether you need to gear down or if you're okay to gear up. And it gives you that biofeedback through the Aura Ring or the health tech. Your sympathetic response, as we've talked about a lot already, is your fight or flight. You're likely anxious, restless, more defensive. Okay, so I identify as being quite a defensive person after a lot of trauma in my life, and I've had to learn when I feel the energies of defensiveness come on. Oh, okay, I recognize this is likely not actually a situation. Likely, not always. Sometimes we do have to be defensive, but likely not a situation I need to be defensive in. I just need to drop into my body, regulate my breathing, and establish safety within myself, right? It's like parenting your inner child. You take a time out, you tune in, what's happening, what's the temper tantrum about, why are you angry? Let's work through the emotion. Let's co-regulate, a hug, a couple deep breaths. Okay, kiddo, you're good. Let's get back to it. Same thing with our own nervous systems. When you're sympathetic, your digestion and problem solving capacity shuts down. So if you've ever felt like, oh, why can't I do math? Or why does my memory go out the window? Or why can't I problem solve? This is a very basic situation that most people seem to be able to work through in life. Why am I having such a hard time? Likely you're sympathetic. So your prefrontal cortex, which is your problem solving part of the brain, it goes offline. You're tapped into the reptilian brain when you're sympathetic. So the very things that make us human in the prefrontal cortex are not accessible to our nervous system when you're in a sympathetic state.
So this is important for anyone, especially in a legal battle. And we've talked about this with our lawyer, Cass, who comes online. When you are in a very high stress situation in court, in law, when they are trying to make a woman look like she's crazy, she's actually not crazy, but in her sympathetic, I'm being attacked, my family is being attacked mode. She is not in a place where she can make good decisions, which is why this work is so important, not for just those of us who've been through it, but especially for those who are in the thick of it to understand.
It's also a really powerful way to advocate for yourself, right? When you start to learn about these presentations and the psychoeducation behind it, and you start to understand yourself better, and we lead not with aggression or passive aggressiveness or being condescending, but more from a place of education and saying, this is what's actually happening with my body or my child's body, because the children share the same nervous system. All of this is relatable. It's translatable to children. So if you're finding there are these very inflamed situations where people are not offering compassion or empathy or support, it can be helpful to really dive deep into understanding this. Dr. Stephen Porges has some great books for the public and great YouTube channels and courses for people to take, where you can start to really educate yourself and advocate for yourself. And I do this often while I'm dealing with people who traumatized me in the past that I still have to deal with. And also just society, right? Like my brain's been through a lot and it doesn't respond the same way the general public does. And if I get any flack for that or pushback or disrespect, I get very calm, but I get very serious with people and I explain things, not to shame them, but hopefully so that they can back off and offer what we all need, which is compassion and support. Um, and then we have the dorsal vagal. So this is collapse. This is shut down. This is freeze. This is when we dissociate. Okay. It's the oldest branch. We're likely numb, disinterested, apathetic. This is where depression comes in. Okay. Blood pressure goes down, digestion drops, and chronic fatigue will set in. Okay. So if you are not understanding why you are so freaking tired and you're terrified of your fear because you're not as productive as you used to be, a lot of people will go and get caffeine or go to try and get B vitamins, or they go to their naturopathic doctor, which is all great stuff. Do it if you feel aligned with that. But how much are we actually working on our nervous system health and our nervous system response through boundaries and breath work and self-compassion, psychoeducation, right? All of these things that help to loosen the knots that live within us without that support and that education, right?
Another thing I think has to loosen the knots too that I found helpful is that all of these states, if you really think about it, it's our body is doing this out of love.
Mm.
So, the dorsal vagal, when the body totally shuts down and freezes, that's the moment when we were running from the tiger. And when the body says, "My love, I don't think we can do this. I can't outrun this beast, but what I can do is not have you feel pain." And
Yeah.
that's what your system is doing to you, right? When you're being yelled at by the abuser or this and that, you just shut down. And it's a beautiful, loving response from a system that was designed to keep you safe. So I find to just honor what our body is doing in that moment also is quite helpful.
And that's key, is honoring it and not shaming these responses, because the nervous system is always listening. So if you find you are in a sympathetic or dorsal response, it's really important to, like you just said, Tally, is to thank it.
Mhm.
Find the gratitude for it. It doesn't mean that you're going to live in that state or stay there forever. We have choice,
Yeah.
right? But it is a beautiful response. It really is quite eloquent and refined.
Mhm.
Um, and then neuroception is a term there's a couple really cool terms. Interoception is a subconscious or unconscious patterning that the nervous system has to scan the internal body. Neuroception is where you're scanning your environment for threat. And then there's nociception, which is more for like functional practitioners to assess the body is assessing how safe is each um, system. How can I explain this? It's actually irrelevant to today's talk, but nociception is a bit more complex in the body scanning itself for disease and threat. But neuroception is a very subconscious and unconscious pattern that most people have. Some of us train our nervous systems to be for it to become a conscious response, but you're basically scanning people and the environment for threat to assess whether another traumatizing event might happen, right? So that is exhausting. That's exhausting, and that's why it's so important to do our trauma healing work and to resolve these wounds, because if not, the nervous system is like honing constantly. It's scanning and honing constantly, and that's taking energy away from regulating your cell and your gene, right, for autoimmune disease, or digesting and detoxifying after you eat a meal. So if you have constipation or loose stool, chronic bloating, um, and you got chronic gut health issues, it's likely because the energy is going toward the scanning and threat response instead of it going, the body wants to keep you alive. It's going to scan for threat before it's going to digest food until you resolve the subconscious wounds that are still driving the nervous system to look for threat.
So those threats are obviously the obvious ones, like a car heading toward us, but
Yeah.
also the not obvious ones, right? Like, so for example, our bank of experiences that we've had in our lifetime. So if we had a dangerous situation with a man that looked a certain way, anytime we see someone who looks like that, neuroception is going to say, this is dangerous. Could it also be passed down epigenetically? So could this be like potato famine? Do you know what I mean? Our grandparents grew up in famine. So we now.
To show that that's happening. Yeah.
Okay. So it's not
Even
even ours.
yeah. Sent if your mother or grandmother or great grandfather had a certain smell, let's say they fought in a war and they were exposed to a certain cherry blossom tree during that war, there's research to show that their children or um, their lineage can have a subconscious stress response when exposed to the cherry blossom scent, even though they hadn't experienced the trauma. So it's not to say, it's not the place that I'm going with my trauma recovery journey is you don't have to go and try and find all of those triggers and sources. You just need to be aware of your own soma. So you don't need to know all the triggers because that is not sustainable and it's not realistic. What is sustainable and realistic is building such a strong relationship with your own body to recognize the feeling of unsafety. And then you actually participate in creating safety in your body whenever that happens. And that is the healing.
Beautiful.
Right? Um, so why does the polyvagal theory matter? Well, it explains trauma responses. It helps us to understand why people behave the way that they do when they are pushed to their limits, right? It explains dissociation. Dissociation can be incredibly frustrating for people in partnership, as a boss, as an employee. If somebody's dissociating, they're on their phone, they're spacing out, they're not listening to what you're saying, they don't remember what you're saying. The fangs can come out. We can get really angry, right? It can feel really invalidating. But when we start to understand the psychoeducation and say, oh, they're likely dissociating because they're out of their window of tolerance. How can I ask for what I need or implement the boundaries and hold compassion for that person or myself when I'm in that state? Shut down procrastination. Procrastination is not a personality trait. It's a trauma response. So we need to stop shaming ourselves for being procrastinators,
Can we
you
just
know?
take a little bit of extra time on that, Cass? Like that's an underscore right there. So
Yeah.
procrastination. So when we feel as mothers, because again, these are all very high functioning, uh, you know, women in this group who want to achieve a lot, but we feel tired and then we beat ourselves up because we can't do all the things that we want to do. So our inability, or like I always compare it to my desire to watch Law and Order because there's like 7,000 episodes because you just want to completely go out. That's a trauma response.
Yeah, you're dissociating. You're in a dorsal vagal response. And it's a way for you to regulate your nervous system because it's had too much. It's had enough. It's like, no, I am going to unplug. You know, when you see those movies with robots and they just push that button and the robot shuts down, it's like that button got pushed and the nervous system is like, no, you're sitting down. That's enough. So when you're tired, when you're saying we have these beautiful mamas who are exhausted and they're maybe feeling a lot of guilt and shame around not getting everything done or not even getting everything done, just procrastinating on something. It is completely sane and reasonable to procrastinate when your prefrontal cortex is not getting the innervation, blood flow, nutrient flow, permission to access executive function. Executive function is what allows you to go, okay, I got this and this to do, but tickety boo, I'm going to go and do it, da, 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 on with my day. That is when you're in your window of tolerance. So, girls, if you've gone through it, if you are maxed out, you have been brought to your knees and you're procrastinating, that is a completely reasonable and expected response from a nervous system that's been through it.
Unreal. Okay, so this part is shut down. The front prefrontal cortex is totally shut down. It's finished.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this also emphasizes the need for safety and connection, co-regulation. These are all biological needs. We have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to thrive and grow in communities with people through co-regulation. So if we are becoming hyper independent, we're not letting people in, these are trauma responses. It is an expression of being in your window of tolerance in a ventral vagal state when you can accept help and you can connect with other humans. Okay, that's co-regulation. And then this is also the basis for therapies that support nervous system regulation. So breath work, somatic therapy, but also detoxification. You know, what I teach, what Thais and I, my business partner, she's not with me today, but what we teach at the academy is the role that the detoxification plays in creating bandwidth in the nervous system so that the nervous system can regulate. It will not regulate if the body is toxic. There's too much stress-based information getting sent from the body up through that afferent signaling through the vagus nerve, saying, we're not okay down here, guys. We need a lot of inflammation, a lot of white blood cells. We need a lot of help over here because the war is intense down here. And it's up to us to recognize that and get into action to clean up both ends of the spectrum.
Wow. And one thing too, I want to just bring a voice to. You were saying how the idea for connection and co-regulation, when a lot of us, when our trauma comes from a partner who was supposed to be there for us, the idea of relationship has been weaponized. So it's the very thing that we need to heal, which is community and, partnership, that is the source of our trauma to begin with, which makes it especially difficult, right?
But doable. I
Yeah.
mean, users were my family, my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
And so, you're supposed to trust more than your family, right? Your mom and dad. So it made it really difficult for me to trust humans in general, friends, coworkers, partners. And I can honestly say that doing this last 3 years of somatic work and healing the unresolved wounds have allowed me to really enjoy life again and people. It is healable. It is healable more than you can imagine. Our brains are plastic. Neuroplasticity is a thing that, as we know, it it's fixable.
Mhm.
So allostatic load is a term to describe wear and tear on the nervous system. It's basically how much bandwidth does your nervous system have? Is it one drop in the bucket that's going to lead to a spillover the edges? Or do you have only a few drops in the bucket and lots of room for raindrops, right? So, chronic stress is the cost of maintaining allostasis. So, that's the process of responding to stressors to maintain homeostasis, and it can become very damaging. So, every time, let's say you have 50 emails that come through overnight, you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I have a deadline. I've got all these emails, and shit, my kid's sick and I can't take them to school. And what am I going to do? Oh my God, my bank account's dwindling, and I actually don't have money for a babysitter today, and like you're just brought to your max. That is expensive for the body. right? As we know, it's an uncomfortable feeling. It takes a lot of neurochemistry, biochemistry to keep hitting that brake pedal on the car, right? It's like you're redlining and then you're trying to brake, and then you're redlining and you're trying to brake, and you're going to burn your gas out. You're going to burn your brakes out. It's just very, very expensive for the body to keep doing that. So it's wear and tear. And that's when your allostatic load rises. Okay. So the way that allostatic load becomes activated, or allostosis becomes activated, first through the limbic system. So the initial response is through you heard something, you saw something, or you felt something that was perceived as a threat. Okay. It activates the amygdala or the limbic system, and that starts this cascade effect in the nervous system. The amygdala then activates the hypothalamus. Okay, the hypothalamus, if you guys have heard of the HPA axis, the hypopituitary adrenal axis, that is ultimately what starts to really mess our bodies up. Your adrenals become fatigued, your brain is hyperactive, there's a lot of sympathetic tone in the body, a lot of sympathetic neurochemistry being recruited. That takes away from the parasympathetic state. It takes away from our progesterone, right? The body's going to build cortisol over progesterone because cortisol is a life-saving hormone. Progesterone isn't, but progesterone is the ooey gooey goodness in a female body. It's what allows us to feel calm and regulated and safe and soft and sleep and repair, right? So that HPA axis chronic recruitment is quite dangerous for the body when it's chronic. Okay, it's a brilliant response in the moment when we need it, but chronic, no good. So what is the HPA axis activation? So the hypothalamus will release corticotropin, the hormone corticotropin, and then the pituitary gland will release adrenocorticotropic hormone. Your adrenals will release cortisol, and cortisol is what mobilizes energy. It also regulates inflammation in acute periods. Okay, so it will help to calm inflammation acutely, but when it's chronic, it actually lends to more inflammation. It will burn out or desensitize the receptors for progesterone. So this is a big problem for women, especially around our perimenopause years. Um, Perimenopause can be very uncomfortable for women, and it's becoming worse and worse for women because we were never designed to live this stressful of a life. So our female hormones are very dysregulated, and it's now lending to, for some of us, 10, 15 years of hell in perimenopause because we're not getting the medical support and the community support and the internal support from ourselves. We're just not taught how to regulate our nervous systems as much. And it's a really big problem, guys. So why allostatic load matters. It builds when stress response is chronically activated, lending to hormonal dysregulation. That's the big thing I want to drive home here, guys, is your hormones are being really messed with when we're chronically stressed. It lends to neuroinflammation of the brain and spinal cord, and it changes the brain. Okay, so just like the brain is plastic, right? The parts of the brain that we want to recruit that helps us to problem solve and calm down and feel good, they actually atrophy. Okay, they atrophy and it can become a brain injury. The beautiful thing is the brain is very forgiving, the body is very forgiving, and we can repair the brain through establishing safe connections, implementing strong boundaries, and reframes. We have to shift the way we think about ourselves in the world. I'll get into that more in a second. The nervous system becomes overwhelmed, leading to long-term mental and physical health problems. So we need to take the shame out of any behavioral diagnoses or mental health diagnoses because it is just part of our health response. We don't feel shame when we break our knee or somebody gets cancer. We should not feel shame when we have mental health presentations when we've had a very tough life or a very tough chapter in our life. It's all health. And long term will lead to sleep disruption, poor digestion, increased pain sensitivity, right? Our nerves are bathing in an environment that's pro-inflammatory. It's going to irritate the nerve and drive pain to the brain. It suppresses immunity, right? A lot of us are getting autoimmune disease because of chronic stress, and we're getting a lot of mood disorders as well.
It's so funny. Me and Lindsay are going off in the chat about these same perimenopausal years and holding excess weight. And all I can think of is it's not supposed to be that way, right? Like if we were operating properly, we wouldn't feel all these symptoms.
Mm. We're not. We're supposed to enter into menopause and it's supposed to be quite gracious. We're not supposed to have PMS either. Sorry.
No, it's true. I know. I know. And Lindsay will say, like, this is again, we talked to Kate. I don't know, Lindsay, if you were at Dr. Kate's last talk, but we were talking about this idea of medical gaslighting, too, where they, there's nothing wrong with you, your hormones are normal, and yet we just feel like we're fat and miserable. Yeah.
And the beautiful thing, working with Kate and Nadine at Longev is talking to them over the years about which practitioners are getting the education, the current research on perimenopause, and why a lot of us are falling through the cracks. It really does come from the American Menopause Society, and it's important that practitioners are getting updated education. You got to find a practitioner that's certified through the American Menopause Society for the most progressive and latest research. So rewiring the brain, it's important to understand neuroplasticity. Once we're traumatized, we don't have to stay traumatized. We can completely rewire. And I'm speaking from experience. This is not just theory. I'm going through it and I've gone through it and it's working. It's really working. So repeated thoughts, actions, and experience form neural connections. So we really need to stop engaging with pattern. I know it's easier than said than done. That is rooted in addiction to unhealthy people, addiction to unhealthy things, right? They're there to kind of help us regulate in an unconscious way until we can recognize this actually isn't serving me in the long term. What wires together fires together. That's neuroplasticity, right? The way that we get synapses to encourage neuroplasticity, these new neural connections, we really want to engage with as much of the same things. So reframes, positive experiences, safe experiences. Those are all common positive things that help to encourage neuroplasticity in a certain hemisphere of the brain that's more health supportive.
Mhm.
So we can't expect our life and our bodies to change if we're engaging with old pattern. We need to do things that allow the brain to gather as much proof that, hey, no, yeah, everything's actually okay, right? Group it together, get as much of that positive reinforcement together as you can.
And go slow. It doesn't have to be like if there's been, let's say, like I'm just going to use this example, forgive me, anyone, like if there's been a rape, for example, super traumatic experience, to like these disconfirming experiences you're talking about to sort of get back to the dating scene again. Your
Mhm.
first in isn't going to go, oh, let's have a one night stand with someone. Your first step in is let me make eye contact with another man at Starbucks. When that hasn't killed me, then I can maybe, like make physical contact with someone. And then when and that hasn't killed me, then I can make a dating profile. And it's being taking these gentle steps to heal that wound and not feeling like we have to like, oh, exposure therapy put us back in that situation again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so practice daily regulation. It's important to implement boundaries, right? Limit exposure to stress where you can. Again, this is easier said than done. Breath work. So as we talked about, slow diaphragmatic breath will activate the vagus nerve. We want to try to normalize human emotion, right? Validate your feelings and protect yourself from people who can't empathize or protect you,
Mhm.
right? Lifestyle. So deep sleep, very important. Very, very, very important. There is a lot happening in deep sleep specifically. Detoxification and drainage support is key. We've talked about that. Nature exposure, our nervous systems like familiar things. As much as we know this modern world is in theory safe, um, the nervous system really wants to see familiar things that it's seen for hundreds of thousands of years. So it really likes the earth,
Mhm.
grass, water, nature, trees, etc. And then appropriate movement. I put appropriate because a lot of people are doing inappropriate movement. They want to get healthy and they're not feeling great about themselves and they like join CrossFit. And I'm like, You have a very sensitive nervous system. Don't go doing CrossFit. Maybe Pilates, maybe yoga, maybe walking or swimming, but find the appropriate movement for your nervous system.
I find a lot of our girls do dance. They find dance to be very healing.
Right?
Mm.
Yeah. Dancing is great. It's ancient way to discharge stored stress in the nervous system. And then body-based practices. So somatic practices, they aid in rewiring from dysregulation to safety. So shaking, grounding, feet in the earth, vagal toning. There's different ways you can actually consciously tone the vagus nerve. Trauma release exercises, so TRE and somatics. Reframe thought patterns. So I haven't found CBT to be as helpful, but mindfulness is lovely, breaking the loops of fear and shame and stress. You want to challenge automatic negative thoughts like, we make up a lot of stories when we're traumatized, and that's our protective parts. Don't shame yourself for making up stories if you notice that you do that, future telling or believing this whole, paranoia, etc. We just want to recognize the brain, that's a protective part, and the brain's trying to protect me by filling in blanks, but it's not necessarily true. Visualization, helping to create and reinforce new and healthier neural connections. Visualization is huge. Often when we're traumatized, it's very difficult to daydream about positive things. It may take some time for the visualization to kick in or have access to that, but that's quite common. And then co-regulating with others. So reaching out to your girlfriends, your sister, that safe person, your bestie, whoever it is. We know we do that innately. It's stored in our nervous system, that wisdom, because we know it calms us. It feels good. So we go towards that. Do a lot of that. Attachment repair, depending on when your trauma started. It started in childhood. We want to do attachment repair because it's only going to translate to better relationships as adults with our romantic and professional relationships. Try to avoid trying to eliminate stress, rather train your nervous system to recover faster. We can't go live in the mountains and be monks. I mean, some of us can, but
That's what we all want.
right? And we just have to train your nervous system to recover faster. So, a beautiful practice that Thais and I came up with together for today's workshop or class is these 4 steps. So, the first one is hand over heart, ideally skin on skin. There's actual research. This is not just a woo-woo thing. There's research to show that hand on heart raises oxytocin levels, that connection hormone, that bonding hormone. Okay, so if you've gone through a divorce, you're lonely, you're scared, you're not ready to date, or you are dating and you're still scared, hand over heart, letting that land. What does it feel like? It shouldn't be a passive thing. We don't want passive self-connection. We want to actually recognize what is the sensations that come up when I have my skin on my heart, my skin of my hand on my heart, and letting that permeate. Try to see if you can expand that through the body into your arms, up into your face, up into your head. Allow that to take over your soma, take over the sensation, right? That's medicine. And that is going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, the second thing is you'd bring both of your hands to either side, like this butterfly here, where your thumbs are kind of touching in the middle, and you've got your fingers on top of your clavicles. And this is a butterfly pump. Okay, so you can use just your index finger or your index and your middle finger. And you're going to, I don't know if you can see me doing this, but you're going to start to pump your fingers on either side of your neck here, just above your clavicle. And this is called the butterfly pump. And this is activating or upregulating drainage by optimizing pressure in the body and fluids. So this is called the terminus right here. And it's your major, believe it or not, it's the major drainage spot for your whole body. All of your fluids in the lymphatic system drain right here from your toes all the way up.
And where would you
Okay.
find that? So it's on above your collarbone?
Above your collarbone. So if you take your earlobes
Mhm.
and then just run your fingers directly down, That's your terminus. You don't have to worry too much about if you're right on the terminus or not, because you're actually manipulating your skin through the filaments that are attached right from your skin to the lymphatic system. So these tiny little filaments, all you have to do is traction the skin and you're going to activate the terminus. You're going to target that. Okay, so if you're here, you've got this nice butterfly position with your hands and you're just alternating this wave or this pump on either side. Okay, you can do that 10, 20, 30 times. You can do it while you're watching TV. You can do it while you're sitting at your desk, just reading an email. Do it anytime you like. It's only going to help. Okay, you're not going to overdo it. And this is stimulating. I know it seems benign, but it's not. You're clearing adhesions through the pressure that you're putting in the area. So your fascia, your nerves, your lymph itself. There are different, biofilms and tissues in the body that can start to kind of, I don't know the term I want to use, but create tension in this area that could inhibit fluids from flowing properly. And when you touch it, when you start to move it, it doesn't take much to clear adhesions. You can just imagine you're just like literally like sweeping cobwebs away. You're breaking up this very fine, soft tissue that's enough to block fluids from flowing, but when you manipulate it, it opens up the matrix and allows for these fluids to get into that gland better, that duct better.
Wow.
Okay. So it's also bilateral activation of the left and right brain hemispheres. So it starts to quiet the amygdala. It will start to quiet that brain activity and it enhances your body's interoception, its ability to scan itself to recognize how safe you feel, right? If somebody was being chased by a tiger, they're not sitting here doing the butterfly pump.
No.
So this is a beautiful way to gain control of your soma. At the same time, I want you to encourage to take a deep diaphragmatic breath. So like we said earlier, if you're breathing into your chest, you're activating your fight or flight. If you're breathing into your belly, nice diaphragmatic breath, you're activating your parasympathetic rest and digest state. So when you take a nice deep diaphragmatic breath, your diaphragm's a pump in the body, and it's going to further optimize on top of what you're doing here. It's going to add another layer of pressure optimization in the body. So it starts to move stuck fluids. Think about a river with a dam in it. The dam is there, the fluids aren't flowing well. So taking a deep diaphragmatic breath and doing this butterfly pump is like taking the dam out of the river and then whoosh, the river that was containing all the boats that had all the nutrition for the village, was carrying all the fruits and vegetables and whatnot into the mainland, can actually get to the mainland now, where before those boats were just stuck behind a dam and the cells, being the people on the land, were not getting what they need to regulate. So, listen, lymphatic drainage is really, really powerful for healing. Very, very powerful. So, again, I just want to reiterate your lymph is the fluid that's moving through the body, not only delivering nutrition to calm the nervous system, but it's also carrying out waste that can also calm the nervous system. The nervous system is going to be irritated if waste is sitting behind these dams and not getting out,
And
right?
Cass, forgive my ignorance, is the lymph separate from the blood?
They actually work together. They work hand in hand. So plasma, depending on where it is in the body, will actually turn into blood or lymph. They're using the same materials, but depending on which capillaries they are, which body system they are, it'll be blood or lymph, but they work hand in hand and they
But it's
rely.
not together. Like lymph is not in the blood. They're two totally separate animals.
That's a more complex conversation. It's not that black and white, but
Okay.
they work together
Mhm.
and they are at times the same thing. But depending on where they branch off in the body, they will become blood or become lymph, but they are fully besties.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the most important thing that I've learned in recovery from trauma and being able to regulate my fluids and regulate my health is letting it land. Dissociative processing or dissociative healing is a thing. There are a lot of people that are bypassing the real work by engaging with theory. They're engaging, not with theory, but they're engaging with practices without actually co-consciousness coming together. So yes, I'm doing the thing, so I deserve the healing. That's that's dissociative processing. You want to actually recognize mindfully what it feels to engage in these practices. Let them land. Build that relationship with yourself to recognize, hey, nobody else might be here with me supporting my soma, but I am here with me supporting my soma, and that matters. That is the most important relationship. How does it feel to show up for myself? How does it feel to take a moment to reparent myself when the world is crazy and my day is crazy? How does it feel to be the person that shows up for the workshop and stay for the whole hour and take the learning and actually try the practice? That builds self-trust. That rewires the brain, that rewires our nervous system, because dissociative processing doesn't actually translate into safety. The nervous system's very wise, and it wants to know that you are attuned to it. Okay, we're adults now. We don't need other people to be attuned to us. We need to be attuned to ourselves. And that is what really shifts safety in the body and really allows us to feel safe in public, in relationship, when we're attuned to us. So, the biggest takeaway for today, if you remember nothing else, I would love for you to remember the importance of letting everything that you're doing for your recovery and your peace to actually mindfully land.
Wow.
So we put this slide together. It's a little presumptuous, but we do know that there are a lot of people in your community that are looking to, you know, I don't want to say repair their life, but repair their life and possibly looking for a second career.
Oh, a
So
lot of us, Cass. Like I brought it up to Cass. I said, and we've talked about it. You didn't even know this, but on previous talks, we've talked about second careers, and I've actually mentioned that you and Thais have the Toronto Lymphatic Academy. So for anyone who is looking maybe to add, start a second career, I highly recommend going to Cass and Thais. It's a beautiful way for us to, anyways, get
thank
into the next stage of our life.
Yeah. And, the beautiful thing about lymphatics as a second career is doing MLD, manual lymphatic drainage. We teach many different levels and all different kinds of trainings, but the first one is the face, neck, and full body. The face and neck, the research shows it is the most effective at regulating the nervous system because of how many nerves we have in the face and how connected, obviously, it is to the brain. So it's a beautiful way to support your community in regulation and detoxification and repair. It's quite lucrative as well. In Toronto, we're charging about minimum $200 for a massage. And it's not to gouge people, it's because it's such a comprehensive treatment. It's doing so, so much. So if you want to learn more about what it's doing, you can jump on our website, torontolymphaticacademy.com. But we do trainings once or twice a month in downtown Toronto, and we do small group guided practices on live models. So it's not just theory. We're getting our hands right in there in the training, learning how to do it. And you leave with everything you need to know to start a practice within, I would say, practice on 3 people and you're good to start charging. We also offer business guidance and pricing support, which can be huge. A lot of people don't know how to price or how to niche, and we help with that as well. And we also cater on both days. There's lunch included, and then you leave with a printed manual. So we've offered we're
Aww.
$122 savings for anybody in the single parent by design community. Um, our trainings are rooted in whole body wisdom. So Thais is a year out from graduating as a acupuncturist, and my 15 years of working as a functional medicine practitioner and fascial therapist as well. So I work with the tissue, right, a lot. And we're very nervous system informed, obviously. So all of our trainings are very much rooted in nervous system regulation. We also support our alumni beyond the training. So once you finish, if you take the training with us, the support doesn't finish there. We have a closed Telegram group where we encourage our students to reach out with questions, videos, get feedback. We also offer our alumni to come back for future trainings at no cost on the Sunday to practice and to network. So we really are here to make sure that you guys can take all the learning and translate it into a thriving career. We're very community driven. So we just had our first event last Saturday, and it was such a hit. We sold out. We had to open up more tickets. We had kind of this American lymphatic celebrity come up, Cicely Bryden. She's quite lovely. And she taught us a self-care masterclass using the lymphatic brush. And that was the beginning of our event series. We're going to be hosting events regularly where people can learn more exciting things and network with like-minded practitioners and just learn some really fun new stuff, right? So you can learn more and register there. The information's there. Use the code single parent, and Toronto Lymphatic Academy.com is our website.
Thanks, Cass.
That's it.
Do you have a little bit of time to do some Q&A?
I would say a little bit of time. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's take off the sharing the screen so we can get you. There we go. Oh my God. Yeah, we've got a couple girls who are somatic practitioners, actually, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. Anyone? You can unmute yourself. Oh, Lindsay.
Yeah. So I was just like looking at the website as well, and
Mhm.
just seeing that um like the training it says for naturopathic doctors, RMTs, nurses, chiropractors, blah blah blah. Like, do you have to already be some sort of practitioner, or you can just raw dog it?
You can, well, yeah, you can write like we have people coming from all different levels of education and backgrounds. What we do encourage is people to get some basic anatomy and physiology understanding. So you can watch YouTube videos. You basically just want to understand where the organs are. And we
Yeah.
come,
Well, I like because I was just certified as a personal trainer in November, but I
yeah,
wanted to do like trauma informed training and blend it with somatics because for me it's my training like for me strength training is a healing modality.
yeah.
So
I was a trainer for 15 years, and I am dying to get trainers into this program because it is such a beautiful way to prep your clients before a workout is to do some of the lymphatics that we teach because it's only going to help them build muscle and detoxify and get leaner quicker and all the things. But also, it's a beautiful way to diversify your offerings as a trainer, right? So you can offer packages for the personal training and then offer some if people wanted to come in and do the manual lymphatic drainage as well. But the education that you got to become a certified trainer is more than enough. You would come in completely ready for the training.
and like there's actually a center. I keep pointing because it's right behind my house.
Okay, yeah.
That's the center. So I'm in Hamilton, but it's trauma therapy, somatics, fitness, nutrition, and community. And as well, there's an osteopath and a physiotherapist there. So it and they would really like they're like, okay, just get whatever you can get and come in here and work. So I'm sure that that would be something I could offer right out of just step out my door and do it there.
Yeah.
And beyond the healing and the benefits to you and your clients, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you could add $100 to your hourly rate. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a beautiful way that you can not only differentiate, but this is a very specialized and it's people are starting to recognize somatics. I mean, Jade can speak to that too, right? Like it's the thing now. Um,
Lymphatics or somatics?
what's that?
Lymphatics or somatics?
Oh, sorry, both. Like I'm thinking of Lindsay's, like your gym and stuff that offers all of these different offerings. People are recognizing it. It's not woo anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not woo-woo.
Yeah.
And that's what Cicely said on Saturday. This lymphatic specialist that came up for the training, she said she's been doing this for over 30 years. And she said, I knew like this would be our decade. You know, lymphatics has been around forever. It's just starting to really get recognized now.
And Cass, is lymphatics something that, so if any of the girls again do it or even just train in it for themselves, is it something that has to be done by a practitioner, or can it be done online? Or can it be done like, I know we won't do it today, but maybe next time you come on, if we could do the big six, right? Like,
Mhm.
what do you think? Is it more like you have to go see someone, or can it be done online?
I mean, definitely it can be done online. You can teach people how to do it online. There's some really great practitioners that teach solely online trainings and teach people how to do it to themselves. Um, you can do your own lymphatics 100%. So you can teach somebody how to do that on a from distance for sure.
What?
It's just I really like giving the massage. It's quite a lovely experience, but you can do so much without the massage.
It's amazing. Well, both when I came to you and Thais when we did the lymphatic, you both did that thing on me on the collarbone. And 2 days ago, I saw Thais, as Cass mentioned, her partner, her colleague, that they're partners at the Toronto Lymphatic Academy. And Thais, she put her hands on my stomach and did like, and it's I don't know what it is. I told her, oh my God, when you put your hands on my belly, I feel like it's that like a mother's touch. You know what I mean? And I think it was Lindsay who said, like, we naturally, or no, Saima said it. We normally touch a baby's belly. Do you know what I mean? Like it's such a tender, loving, grounding touch. And she was, yeah, massaging my belly, and I'm like, oh, like it's it. I felt totally like a different human.
I know her touch is quite lovely.
No, yeah. So if anyone's ever had, I know Christina, who's online too, she's had a lymphatic massage, and she's like, if anyone here hasn't had one, make it a make it a priority. It's wonderful.
Do this year. Yeah, it's quite lovely. Yeah. But yeah, Lindsay, it would be I think it would marry very well with what you're up to. And the center sounds lovely. I'm
Yeah, go out to Hamilton and visit. It's
um,
really it's quite revolutionary. I can put the info in about it.
I
But
would love that. Yeah.
like what I mentioned earlier just in the chat, that for me, the trauma therapy, I'm very stubborn, and it would not have worked
Mhm.
without somatics. That is the only way that it like finally it was like 9 months, and I just broke down crying in somatics. My therapist was like, finally, I broke Lindsay. But
Aw.
it was, she
We
was
find
across the room. And my memory is like it was black and white in the room when I went in. And then I felt her like holding me in her arms, but she was across the room. And I was like, no, it was me holding myself. Like it was so, and like I'm not woo-woo spiritual at all, but it was this something happened, and it was so profound, and it was all rooted in my body. And from there, like that was, there was, I could not have healed that way doing like, a journal of changing my thoughts or blah, blah, blah. Like it was
Crazy.
to the core changing. And yeah, it's really,
Aw.
it's really, I still tell people like I can't necessarily explain what it is, but it is so powerful.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any last minute questions, comments?
I'll chime in. Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Jade. It's just like really timely for me. I noticed this morning I had to tell my nervous system I wasn't being chased by a lion. And I'm like, I feel totally burned out. I'm like, right, burnout means my nervous system is dysregulated. I've just am going through a phase of life where I've actually have not had this amount of responsibilities. And like I'm being validated like through my therapist that this is an unreasonable amount of their like responsibilities. It's not just that my nervous system is like overreactive. It's just like actually a lot. And
Mm.
for the most part, I've been feeling really proud. But I guess I was just curious, like, what's your go-to? In the moment, you drop your kid off at the bus, and then you're like, I'm dysregulated. Like,
Mm.
I was just kind of curious, like, if there's like that one thing that, like, in the moment that really grounds you.
Hand over heart every time.
Okay.
Every time. It's and skin to skin. It's if I can't for whatever reason and I have to go over my clothes, it
Okay.
feels good.
Yeah, that's great. I don't do that. So that's a great tip.
And do you
It,
feel for your heartbeat, or do you feel like, what do you, just anything?
it's my hand, it's the presence of my hand on my heart, and she almost it can almost bring tears to my eyes because it's almost like a longing. My heart is longing for that connection.
Mhm.
So it feels the heat and the skin and the warmth of my hands. It's like she exhales. It's just a peace washes over me. So that's my personal go-to, but I think it's because my heart is actually broken. Like my heart is broken by my family. And I think it might be a hand on belly for somebody else,
Mm.
or hands on face for somebody else, sometimes hand on back of neck, right? You got to find that place where you're like, oh, God damn, that felt good. Like, oof, needed that. That is your sense of safety, your power that is available to you day and night. It's your hand. Find that spot that just sometimes it's hugging. For some people, it's rocking and the butterfly hug, right? For me, as soon as I feel that pit starting, that emptiness, that fear, bam, hands on my heart, and I just take a deep breath.
Mm.
What a great tool for even court. Do you know
Yes.
what I mean? Imagine if you see a woman who's nervous and who's dysregulated. The second, it's a sign to almost others too, that like
Right?
I'm trying to regulate myself in that moment.
Beautiful way to say that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like no one, she could not be in a good place in court. She could be crying, she could be frantic, but the second you see a woman put her hand on her heart,
Yep.
that's like, you know what, back off. I think,
Visualize.
yeah.
Right? Watching somebody put their hand on their heart, and it's
Yeah.
like you immediately tune in. She needs a moment,
Hmm.
or she needs space, or she needs grace, right?
Yeah, that's a tool. That's a tool for anyone in the midst of their litigation.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Well, Cass, I'm gonna close her down unless anyone quickly wants to jump in, but or she needs support. Jane, you're welcome, Jade, very welcome. But Cass, you are gonna be back with us. You are one of our resident girls now. Lindsay, Cass, if you want, Lindsay put the link to her gym in. I'm going to send it to you too.
Yeah.
efit.institute. To reach Cass, again, I'll put all the information on the recording and I'll email it all to you. But Cass is the Toronto Lymphatic Academy, or no, the, right?
Know that just Toronto
Just
Lymphatic.
Toronto Lymphatic Academy.com. Yes, .com.
Yeah.
And she also works out of Longev. We mentioned Dr. Kate McLeod. If any of you want to look up, well, again, Kate's on our platform, but if you want to look up Longev, do you still practice out of Longev? Cass, you
Yeah.
do, right? So they can book with you too, the local girls.
Yeah. Yeah. If you wanted to do any of the treatments and experience it, by all means. Yeah.
Cass is phenomenal. Thais is phenomenal. And it's spelled Thais. So if you're on the platform, you can look up Thais. And Dr. Kate, I highly recommend, especially those of you who have extended coverage, that will be covered under
Mm.
that.
Mm.
So reach out to all of these amazing women. Again, to say that you have been a piece of my healing is not enough. You have been my healing. And I'm so lucky and honored to share you with these ladies. So.
I feel so lucky and honored also.
Yeah.
And I look forward to coming back and chatting with you guys more.